The time had come. He took a deep breath, then let the air out slowly, dropping his shoulders, easing the muscles, twisting his neck, and rotating his head to loosen the top of his spinal cord. Then he looked back at the road. Several hundred meters away, beyond the entrance of the underpass, he saw a black Mercedes. It was traveling fast, way too fast. Behind the Merc was the reason for its desperate speed. A motorbike was chasing it, buzzing around the big black car like a wasp around a buffalo. There was a passenger riding pillion, carrying a camera, leaning away from his seat and firing his flash gun, apparently oblivious to his own safety. He looked for all the world like a paparazzo, risking his neck for an exclusive shot. Nice job, thought Carver, watching the speed team. He started his bike and got ready to move. For a second, he imagined the passengers in the car, urging their driver to pull away from the relentless pursuit of the bike. Everything was going to plan. Carver rolled downhill, towards the road leading from the underpass. As he reached the junction with the main road, a grey Citroën BX hatchback emerged from the underpass. Carver let it go, noting the two Arab men in the driver's and passenger's seats. Another car went by, a Ford car. Then Carver rode his bike out into the middle of the road. He crossed to the far side of the carriageway, then turned the Honda into the flow of the oncoming traffic and dashed forwards about 100 meters to the mouth of the underpass. There was a line of pillars down the middle of the road. They supported the tunnel roof and separated the two flows of traffic. He stopped by the last pillar and reached down to unclip his dazzler. Something caught Carver's eye. At the mouth of the underpass, coming towards him, was a battered white Fiat Uno. It was doing the legal speed, 50 kilometers per hour, and therefore going less than half as fast as the car and the bike racing towards its tail. Carver's eyes narrowed as he pulled out the laser. His mouth gave a quick twitch of silent irritation. This wasn't part of the plan. The Mercedes and the motorbike were closing on the little white car at breakneck speed. There were 100 meters between them, 50, 20. The Merc came roaring up behind the Fiat in the right-hand lane, then swung left, trying to overtake it. The bike rider had no option. He had to go round the other way, squeezing between the right-hand side of the Fiat and the tunnel wall. Somehow, he shot through without a scratch, rocketing out the far side of the Fiat. The Merc wasn't so lucky. The front of the car, on the passenger's side, caught the Fiat from behind. The Merc smashed through the Fiat's rear lights and crumpled the thin metal of the Fiat's rear panels. The tunnel walls echoed to the cacophony of screaming engines, smashing plastic and tortured metal. But inside his helmet, Carver felt isolated, unaffected by the chaos that was rushing towards him. He could see the driver of the Mercedes struggling to regain control as his vehicle careered across the road. The guy was good. Somehow the car straightened out. Now it was coming straight towards Carver. Carver stood as immobile as a matador facing a charging black bull. He raised the laser, aimed at the windscreen of the car, and pressed the switch. The blast of light was instantaneous. A beam of pure energy exploded across the ever-narrowing gap between Carver and the onrushing Merc. It took only a fraction of a second. Then the beam was gone. The Mercedes lurched to the left. Somewhere, deep in the unconscious, animal part of the driver's brain, some sort of alarm signal must have registered. He slammed his foot on the brakes, desperately trying to stop the car. He had no chance. The 2-ton Mercedes smashed into one of the central pillars, instantly decelerating from crazy speed to total immobility. Its bonnet crumpled exactly as it was supposed to, absorbing some of the force of the impact. But there was just too much speed, too much weight, too much momentum. The shattered car bounced off the pillar and slewed across the road, spinning around as it went. It finally came to a halt in the middle of the road, facing back the way it had just come. The front of the Merc looked like a dinky toy hit by a baseball bat, with a gigantic U-shaped depression where the bonnet and the engine bay had been. The windscreen was shattered, as was every other window. The driver's side front wheel was splayed outwards, and on the other side, the wheel had been jammed into the bodywork. The roof had been ripped from the passenger side, thrust down into the passenger compartment, and shifted 2 feet to the left. The pressure from front and top had forced all 4 doors open. There was no sign of movement from the passenger compartment. Carver knew that the chances of anyone surviving that kind of an impact were minimal. In the corner of his eye, he saw a car drive past him, on the other side of the road, going into the tunnel past the Mercedes. Meanwhile, the Fiat was completing its journey out of the tunnel. Carver caught a glimpse of shock and terror on the driver's face. And then he noticed something else. There was a dog in the front seat. It had its tongue out, panting happily, oblivious to the destruction disappearing behind it. Carver strapped the laser back on the petrol tank of his bike. He was tempted to go down and check the wreckage to make sure the target was dead, but there was little point. In the unlikely event that anyone had survived such a devastating impact, there was nothing Carver could do about it without leaving some sort of forensic trace. And even if Ramzi Hakim Nawaz was still alive, he wasn't going to be plotting terrorist activities anytime soon. It was time to go. At the far end of the tunnel, Carver could see a couple of pedestrians standing and watching, unable to decide whether to walk any further towards the scene of the accident. In the distance, he could hear the mosquito whine of motorbike engines. People were coming. They would have cameras. They would be followed by cops, ambulances, fire engines. Carver didn't want to be around when they got there. He needed to get away before anyone figured out this wasn't just an unfortunate accident. He swung the tail of his bike round 180 degrees and headed back up the exit ramp of the Alma Tunnel.